Welcome, welcome, welcome to the UpKeep Pledge Pros Podcast, a podcast dedicated to unmatched value and unwavering support for our customers and the community at large. Today, we have a new friend of UpKeep and someone I got to spend some time with at IMTS. We have Josh Erickson, who is the Public Relations and Engagement Specialist for FlexTrades. Josh, welcome.
Mhm. Hey, Brian, thank you for having me. Really glad to be here today.
Awesome. You are so very welcome. It was nice to find some more real people at IMTS who want to talk about the reality of the industry, the things that matter in the industry. And what's also cool is you yourself, you do a lot of filming and doing all kinds of cool stuff around the country, which was also cool. So um,
Yeah.
before we get into all that wildness, Josh, tell us a little bit about you, and ultimately what you're doing now for FlexTrades.
Yeah, and I mean that's really why we ended up crossing each other's path and I'm here today is kind of that entire path and really that's what we're trying to do with every interaction we have is just make that path marked more clearly for everyone. So I'm out of Minnesota, if you can't tell from the long vowels. I'm not Canadian, but close. And I'm a product of the trades. I was born on a farm, cut my teeth in construction, and by a little bit of luck and a little bit of intention, like I've become kind of a quasi expert on employment and manufacturing. I
Cool.
work with a company called FlexTrades. We're based out of Minnesota, but we're a national manufacturing workforce solutions provider. That's a mouthful. That what it really means is we are kind of your full-time, high level, high skill option if you're swimming in the temp and staffing pool. So we support manufacturers across all industries within the manufacturing sector. Doesn't matter what they make, doesn't matter how they make it. If they need project-based help and they've worked with a traditional temp and staffing company before and something there wasn't satisfactory, normally that's some type of a skill set deficiency that's just not available in that local market. Sometimes it can be something as simple as just, needing a higher level character skill set. Whatever it is, those roads lead to FlexTrades, and our people are full-time, full benefit employees. They come from all over America.
Nice.
They go where the smoke is, when they're needed. They bring that skills and experience that they have and put out that production fire for that client company, and then they go back home or on to their next project. So it's kind of why we're FlexTrades. We give our clients the flexibility to have the help they need, where they need it, when they need it. And we give our clients or our technicians, I should say, the flexibility of being able to choose the work they want, where their skills are most needed, and getting a premium rather than settling for what's available to them locally. And for 20 years, it's been a really, really good model for us and for our clients and technicians.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's always cool to hear that you're aligning skills with needs.
Mhm.
I've managed several facilities where I've had to rely in rare cases on temp work. And I'm not going to mention any names, but like I swear these temp agencies are just like they just want to fill the slot. They want to get paid. They're going to pay the guy $12 an hour and we're going to pay them 50, right? Or some obnoxious, number, right? I'm exaggerating, of course, but like it's not about, in my opinion, in manufacturing and trades. These aren't just people you can pull off the street to go do this work.
No.
And it's a breath of fresh air to hear you say that like these are the people that are full-time employees with Flex Trades, and we're going to give you full-time competent trades and craftsmen to do work at your facility. It's not like you're sending a random person there to operate a press and they don't even know what a
Mhm.
press is.
Yeah, well, and so much of this is about a lot of our conversation today is going to be about saying what you really mean and not saying what you've been saying. And we're trying to be the forefront on leading a paradigm shift in manufacturing, like pay people what they're worth, show them what their value is, deliver value to your clients, these things that all businesses say they want to do and we've lost sight of. And I'm not here to try and talk down to temp and staffing, to full-time employment, to any kind of employment whatsoever. Every, different things fit better for different people.
Sure.
But temp and staffing's gotten a really bad reputation in manufacturing and in other industries because of exactly what you're talking about. And I think a lot of that comes from a lack of communication on what expectations really are. If you need just people in the door to fill it out and you have some ability to train and spool up, a traditional temp and staffing provider is going to be great. But if what you need is somebody that's going to hit the ground running and be able to be hanging with your full-time 10-year people, a local temp and staffing agency is not always going to be able to provide that. So really knowing what you want and what you're looking for, that's going to help any manufacturer, any industrial client out there, any company, whether they're working with FlexTrades or not, just really dialing in on what you need versus what you want, and then having those realistic conversations, whether it's with your internal HR department or with a partner company or a vendor like FlexTrades.
Yeah. So where I guess where my gripe was is that, we would always have criteria for hiring temps, right? But it always seemed like the resume that came through was what we wanted, but the person
Yes.
we got was not that person. So
Mm-hmm.
that's what I mean by that. It's like there's
Yeah.
this, it's like this I don't want to say smoke and mirrors, but it's somewhat of a facade where it's like, hey, I'm looking at this resume and I'm like, okay, this person has some attributes. They have some basic, fundamentals, blah, blah, blah. Okay, cool. Let's bring them in. Then that person comes in and they have no clue what I'm talking about when I mention things that they're supposed to know.
Yes.
So
And
it becomes very difficult when you are having that structure and that communication, but you're not receiving that at the end of the day.
and I mean, that's really the foundation of good business when we're doing it, right? You and I talked, you've been at enough different companies that have a plethora of vendors, right? They have their sources for their materials, for their subcomponents, and for, their labor solutions where they need it. And you do good business with a company that does good business with you. And when you don't, when you're misrepresentative, that just leads to problems down the road. So that, part of our model is being incredibly more in depth on the technical discovery side of things than I think probably any other company that is even kind of like us is.
No doubt.
And then part of that is following through on that all the way through, right? Our recruiters get this shit list, for lack of a better term, on here's what somebody needs to have to be successful. Here's what it would be nice if they have, and here's what is gravy, right? And then they go out and they all have techs that they work with, and all of those techs are great workers. But which of them have, check those boxes where we're setting them up to be successful on their first day, their first week, their first month on a project. And when you follow through on that, funny things are incredibly successful, and so, and that's always kind of the uphill push with any vendor. I want you to change where you're getting your material from. I want you to change what tool company you're using to get your machine tools. I want you to change your vendor for your workforce solutions. Well, why? Well, because we can do it better. And we take an awful lot of pride on, sometimes it takes a lot of pings, to kind of get that first chance and that foot in the door. And we work really hard to make sure that we deliver on our promises with it. And, we've been doing that for 20 years. And I'd say we have a right to be pretty proud of that, because the experience you're talking about's not uncommon out there, and it's not uncommon to temp and staffing agencies. There's close to 800,000 businesses working in manufacturing or construction, and there's over 25,000 working in temp and staffing. Most of those are great businesses, but it only takes, a couple of bad apples to spoil the reputation for an industry. That's really
Yeah.
what you and I, kind of connected on to begin with, right? Is that same thing applied to the trades from a larger purview, whether you're talking manufacturing or agriculture or construction. We've been hearing about the skills gap now for 15, 20 years almost.
Yeah.
And everybody's positioning that as something that's new to this generation. But you and I are from the generation before. Our parents are from the generation before that. And this is the same experience I had. It's just now we finally have enough knowledge out there to turn that lens inside and start saying, what can I do differently as an employer, as a leader in my industry, as a leader on my work shift, to make this different today for everybody I touch. And that's part of why, the business we do and how we do it is what it is. Like, that's how we want business to be done with us. And we work really hard to do that with everyone. And we think every time that someone follows through on that, you're just setting up another domino to do the same thing.
Right. Yeah. I mean, when I think of when I think of the trades and what you're doing and the skill sets that you have and the needs that you meet with the appropriate crafts and skills, it reminds me, and of course, I'm going to talk a little bit about maintenance because that's that's where I've lived the majority of my life. And we talk about variability and risk in maintenance a lot. I mean, and that's in
Hmm.
everything, right? But when you bring people who are the biggest variables, right? Because we touch things
Yes.
and we do things differently than somebody else. We have different culture, different everything. When you bring people, crafts, skills, trades into your facility to do work, you're inducing a variable, right?
Hmm.
The more structured and the better strategy or in relationship you have with that vendor, you're reducing variability systematically on its own, right? So
Yes.
by bringing in a temp agency to fill a somewhat technical role or a role that may have a risk or variable or an impact on your business negatively if it's not done correctly, you're rolling the dice. If you
Hmm.
bring in a craftsman that's been vetted, who's done job, maybe we're talking about a millwright who's done project works all over the country, right? You bring him in to move a boiler or to move a lathe or something, the dude's going to know what he's got to do. You've reduced the
Hmm.
variability through skills and through experience. So now the relationship is much stronger and the job goes off a lot smoother, right?
Yep. Yeah, that's exactly it. I mean, that all of life's a math problem when you really boil it down, right? And what we're trying to do, anybody listening to this today, think back to your, introductory algebra that you took in seventh or eighth or ninth grade class, and you're trying to simplify everything. And that is, the basic premise of any manufacturer that's out there. Like they're a system of processes before you even get into the people or the materials or the tools that are being used. And you and I talked about this too when we first met. One of the big misconceptions in this industry is because there are some massive companies that make massive amounts of money and have some huge workforces, it means they're all equally good at business leadership, right? But a lot of these companies start because one man or one woman was a great maintenance tech or a great machinist or a great engineer, and they know that thing, or they were a great salesperson or a manager and they know that thing, but they don't know everything. But that's good enough for them to be successful. And then they get to kind of this point where you start encountering hurdles, challenges, and then you attack it the same way you've attacked every other challenge that's out there. Instead of saying this is a new challenge, we're in a new position, let's get some new input in on this. So whether it's, a firsthand example with things that happen on our projects all the time where you get one of our technicians into a facility that's been doing business for 40 years, but that technician's been in this game for 20 or 30 years at a lot of other companies, kind of like you, but different. And they can look at it something and say, hey, I've seen company X do this and I've seen company Y do that, and they're similar to you for reason A or B or C. So maybe if you tried this or tried that, and we have technicians all the time that show up because I need somebody to help standardize our operating procedures. We hadn't done that at this point. But then in going through and standardizing those operating procedures, and they actually look at those procedures and they say, here's places where we can cut out inspection steps in a preventive maintenance program. Here's points where we can cut out machining operations necessary to make one component. Get it done in half the time and reduce the scrap, whatever it is. And you start. I mean, manufacturers know very well this is a quantity and quality business. And so those things add up over time. And maintenance is the exact same way. It's the tools you use, it's the consumables, are you using the right lubricant versus the wrong one that's out there just because it's a little cheaper. But you need to apply all of that same type of review that we put into our consumables and our hardware and our software, apply that to your people and your people processes too. Like one of the first things I've seen at so many manufacturing facilities is you get this new person in on day one and you just overwhelm them right away, right? They meet the crunchiest person in your facility that is just so burned out on their work. They get shown everything, and like they start going, this might be too much for me to bite off. Instead of taking a playbook from lots of companies in other industries like tech, and it's like make that first day a celebration of being here and being part of the team and being part of this brand now, and really start building that employee loyalty. And so, that's, it sounds counterintuitive, but that's actually the impact a lot of our deployments have with client companies when they're out there, is you get in this outside set of eyes that maybe can make some suggestions, but they also help shine light on the things you do really well. And then they encourage you to go out and amplify that, the next day. And it's like a win-win for a lot of companies. And you don't have to bring in an outside source like us to do that. You just got to take your internal sources and say, heck, you can do it like almost mock calls, right? But it's just go out there and look at this with a new set of eyes instead of looking for what you're always looking for. Pretend you're someone from outside, and doing the same thing just a little bit differently, it pays off huge returns for everyone involved in that.
Yeah, I mean, you have this melting pot of experience, right? And of pasts and industries, right? And essentially, and I always try to look at things kind of strategically in a sense, but uh if I was to hire flex trades and bring them into my facility, yeah, I'm going to get specific craft labor, right, to do the things that need to be done.
Mhm.
But the like unquantifiable thing you get is that person's
Yes.
experience, right? Not just
Mhm.
them turning wrenches or machining or doing what, it's their experience and of the past that when they walk, like you said, they walk into this facility, they're evaluating immediately. They're
Yep.
comparing future or past with other jobs, this job to this job. They're comparing you immediately. And then they start to see things differently. That's
Mhm.
like, to me, that's another benefit. So I'd be like,
Yes.
hey man, you're here to do A, B, C, and D for 3 months. That's wonderful. We love that. What have you noticed around here that we don't notice?
Yes.
And then talking about people's first days, in the maintenance realm, I can't speak for everybody, but for me, maintenance technicians were shadows for at least 3 months. I, Regardless of skill set, they could be the lead man on the job, but they're going to be on a job with somebody
Mhm.
because
Yep.
I needed them to experience the job with less stress. I wanted them to have a teammate, and I also wanted the person that I put them with to learn skills, interpersonal skills. I wanted them to make relationships with the new person, right? So I would rotate technicians to take care of my new guy or gal, right?
Mhm.
And it's symbiotic because you're creating a fresh environment for this new employee that's not that stressful, but you're also letting your technicians that you have build soft skills, build relationship skills, communication skills, all the things that matter other than
Mhm.
just I'm a super badass wrench turner or machinist, right?
Yep. And I mean, the honestly, the biggest problem with for most people in anything in their personal lives and how they handle their budgeting and how they run their business, whatever, I just think it's more acute in manufacturing because we're so inwardly focused on the technical part that we kind of miss the forest for the trees. Is I mean, manufacturing pioneered the continuous improvement mindset.
Sure.
Like Henry Ford kind of formalized it, and it's just been through the Toyota method and modern lean practices, and it's just been washed and rewashed till we have it down so well. But we don't apply it to everything, and we should. Like something like you're talking about, cross training, apprenticeship models, shadowing. These are not things that these terms get thrown out, and then people in our industry almost like turn their ears off, like it's some new
They
granola
need a
cruncher, like new
worker. Go to
age
work.
word.
Go to work.
Yes,
Go to work.
but these ideas have been around forever,
Yeah.
and it's like just for some reason we've moved away from them, and we're so bottom line focused on today's account that we're not looking at that bigger thing on where if you are creating it's the Richard Branson principle, right? Like he's the founder of Virgin Records
Mhm.
and Virgin Airlines and a whole bunch of other Virgin properties. And he's a thought leader in kind of business leadership. And he's got a very famous quote that's been shared on probably 100 million memes. You train and prepare your people, develop them to where they can leave you. and you
Mhm.
treat them and pay them so that they don't want to.
Mhm.
And every employer in every industry, from the gas station down the road from you to the world's six companies that are out there, like a Procter and Gamble, you should be applying the same thing, because it's not just altruistic. It's good business. You spend a little time and money today to have more flexibility with where you can direct those resources tomorrow. So when you bring someone in new onto your maintenance staff today, you might know the biggest hole you have is in
PLC
cons-
troubleshooting.
exactly PLC troubleshooting, or it can be on the preventative maintenance cycle on just doing those scheduled ahead of time turn things, and it's
Sure.
so easy to just dump that person right into that daily task list and let them attack it, right? But then 6 months down the road, when you have that unexpected retirement, or that unfortunately timed industry or injury or illness, you have a workforce that could have been prepared to be flexible enough to adjust to that. You had 6 months of spool up time, but you didn't, because you were too focused on the short-term goal instead of balancing those short-term goals against the long-term goals. And really, the whole maintenance approach, going from reactive maintenance to preventive maintenance to predictive maintenance, that we apply that to our machinery. We apply that to our machine floor. Why don't we apply that to the workforce that's keeping all of that profitable for us?
That's right. It's short-sightedness. It's the I want my return immediately. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and the thing about it is there are going to be people that you hire that come in, hit the ground running, and they make an impact immediately with no help whatsoever. Those people exist.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the majority of people, however, have to be kind of dipped
Yes.
into the environment, right? And get their bearing. And one of the most important things, and I think I don't remember if you said it or we kind of skipped over it, but which is like this environment culture standpoint, right? Um, People want to know that when they're coming to work for a business or to do a job, that it they know they're there to do a job, right? But it should be focused on mutual benefit, growth, facilitation of growth, values, things that, as you said, make someone want to stay. Yeah, we can
Mm-hmm.
be complete badasses and we can work overtime and we can get it after it on weekends and make stuff running. And that's all well and good, right? But if you have a really shitty culture and environment surrounding that process, you have unhappy people. But
Yes.
if you have a culture and an environment that promotes well-being and promotes good communication and good culture amongst their peers and leadership, they're more likely to want to participate in those not so fun things to do because they know
Mm-hmm.
that the bigger picture is more in alignment with their values.
Yeah. I mean, that's business 101, in my opinion, right? Is be clear and speak the truth to your people, even when you don't have to. And I'm not saying you give away every internal
Yeah, no,
organizational prospect you have to every single employee, but trusting your people to kind of know where they fit and where you see them fitting, and looking at them as people, right? Like, one anecdote I have, when I was at IMTS, when you and I met each other about a month ago, uh, I was talking to one of our influencer friends, getting ready to film an interview with him. And he was telling me about a previous company that he had worked with, probably 15 years ago. We were recollecting on some short-sighted conversations like this, and he told me about how it was a fabrication company and fairly sizable in the Cincinnati area. And they had a competitor company across town that was devastating their workforce, poaching all kinds of people, because they were offering $18 an hour when this place was paying people that have been there for 10 years $12 an hour. Um, Thankfully, we've seen pay rates in general kind of catch up in the last 15 years to being a little bit more normalized in most regions of the country. But even 15 years ago, that was a pretty stark contrast, especially for highly skilled people.
yes,
And when he was talking with her, she was saying, our people are not loyal. And he said, we need to have a conversation here about what loyalty really is, because they are loyal. They're loyal to their spouses and to their parents and to their kids and to, keeping the roof over their head and their rent paid and their groceries in the fridge. And when they can go out and make a 50% earnings increase by moving employers, they are serving
That
who they
loyalty.
are most loyal to. They are practicing their loyalty, even if it's hard because of the loyalty they have here. What we need to be is as loyal to them and say, okay, can we match this? And if we can't, how close can we get? Because that's our responsibility as an employer, is to be able to meet that. Nobody is taking a paycheck to come into your facility and help you make money.
That's
They're
right.
taking a paycheck to come into your facility and help achieve their goals that they need finances for.
Mhm.
Now, if you do
And
business right,
add value and be fulfilled, right?
well, and that's what I'm saying. If you do business right, you're able to take their goals and your goals and have that be incredibly harmonious,
Yeah,
right? Like when you recognize the person that's filling your role, now you can have that role filled better and that person fulfilled better in filling that role by just keeping the human aspect of them in. They're not machines, they're not automatons, and none of us are.
that's right.
And in our trade, like, we're not afraid to get dirty. We're not afraid to bust our knuckles up or go buy a new tool out of our own pocket. Like, the tradespeople are loyal to the trades,
Yes,
to the industry, to the company. You just need to give them something for them to want to spend that loyalty on you as an employer
that's
instead of
right.
somewhere else where someone is giving them that.
Yeah, I think a big question, I've in the past as a mechanic, I've had, you know, people say in interviews like, "Oh, we're looking for a dedicated, loyal this," and always in my
Mhm.
mind, I'm always like, I bet you my definition of loyalty is different than their definition of loyalty. Their
Mhm.
definition of loyalty is me loyal to them.
Mhm. Yes, exactly.
And everybody listening, like I challenge you, if anybody ever brings up the loyalty conversation in employment or an interview, ask them what is the definition of loyalty to them. And
Mhm.
if you're not in that, and the value that you bring is not in that loyalty conversation, put your thinking cap on, and maybe you might want to, you know,
Yeah.
move on.
No, absolutely. I mean, I'm one of the people here that's kind of the people facing people, right? So if we have a career fair booth that we do at a tech school somewhere around America, I'm normally in it. And we get a lot of good feedback from tech school, and we have hundreds of them that we partner with. We get a lot of good feedback tech schools and from other employers at these events. And often I'll be at events with two, three, 400 employers, and some of those are companies that are client companies of ours, and we'll have people, lining up 3, 4, 5 deep at our booth to hear about opportunities that, while they don't know it because we keep names out of it, can be deployments of these other
Yeah.
companies that have no one at their booth. And the difference isn't in the value of the work. Sometimes it's not even in what we're paying. It's we're really good about keeping in mind what they are standing in that booth for, right? And
Sure.
it's, yes, what are you going to have to do day one? What do you need to be qualified for us to even consider you? What will you make? What are the benefits? But it's, how is this going to help you grow your career? Because ideally, we pay you and we treat you right. You want to stay here for a 50-year career. But once you get 5 or 10 years in and you have different skills and different experience in a different life situation, maybe you want to start your own company. Maybe you're not interested in road work. If you can be thinking on day one how 10 years of working with us can help set you up to be more successful on day one of your second 10 years in this industry, you've already had a better experience with us as a potential employer before it ever gets into the onboarding, and
Right.
it's that's not hard. You just have to keep in mind, what do I want as an employer? What do they want as an employee? And let's have this conversation, touch on both sides of that.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I guess I have a question about that is do you guys ever face that? I mean, you're putting skilled people in places all over the country. I'm sure that some of those companies are like, I want this guy full time. I want him or her to work here forever.
Oh yeah, yeah, we absolutely do. And I mean, we have some contractual stuff built into that. I mean, we're here to build bridges, not
Sure,
not build barriers,
sure.
So don't get me wrong, when we have someone that's great and they're making money by helping us make money, by helping client companies make money, we want them to want to keep working with us. But if they find that perfect fit and they love that company and that company loves them, We have contractual ways we can work that out if that
Sure.
happens on project. If it happens down the road, awesome. You know, it was just kind of influence on that. Now, that doesn't happen very often, just partly by default because our travel model, if someone's coming out of Louisiana to do a project in New Hampshire, they may end up or Vermont. A perfect example, we had a client company in Vermont that does a lot of nozzles for injection molding.
Oh, cool.
We've had like a 2-year project going on there with tons of machinists and fabricators, and a lot of them coincidentally comes out of Texas. And you know, you'd think that, oh, people out of Texas aren't interested in being up north in the winter, but this company is so awesome, the work's so awesome, the way they treat them is so awesome that we routinely have people do their 90 days on or their 120 days on, whatever they commit to, go back home for their 3 weeks off or their 1 week off, whatever they wanted for their dedicated home team and time, and then they'll re-up on that project again because they like it. But and we've had plenty of those texts that client goes, I love them. I'd love for them to work for me full time. But that person's there because they like the work, but they
Sure.
don't necessarily want to leave Texas. You know, my family's there, my
Yeah.
house is there,
They
whatever.
like the flexibility.
Exactly. And so, you know, again, we're pretty proud about the fact that we put out really skilled, experienced people. So client companies want them frequently.
Sure.
That match up where that technician also saying, yeah, I love it here so much I would relocate, or I
Sure.
happen to be local to you, so I can. When that all works out and it fits, we have a process to accommodate that, and you know, we get to say, hey, we're the ones that made this kind of
Yeah.
manufacturing love match. And if it doesn't, we always tell them, hey, we can get someone just as good for you to backfill that position if you need it too.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you're if people's needs are being met, I mean, that's what it is. Like, the Vermont example is perfect for that, right? I love
Yep.
working at this place. I love working for FlexTrades. I'm able to do what I want to do. I can go home for a couple weeks. I can pick my time. I can go here and do this. But my needs are being met. Why move? Why do anything? Why go anywhere?
Yep.
That's
And
awesome.
and that speaks to a thing too that you and I talked about earlier that I think really is a good thing for any of your listeners that have a more traditional employment path for their maintenance techs they may be employing to keep in mind though is that a big reason a lot of our technicians work with us is because we're just able to offer them a tremendous amount more money than whatever their individual local market bears, right? And you and I both know when you got mouths to feed and you got bills to pay, like when you go, I can make twice as much in 4 months on this project as I can make in, 5 months in traditional employment here, 6 months. A lot of them will jump on that. But
Yeah.
we have incredibly skilled people that in other areas are making exactly what we offer. So the flexibility for them is not necessarily in payment. It's in that variety of work because you know as well as I do, if you're doing the same thing in the same place day in and day out for 30 years, you can be great at it. You can take a lot of pride in it. You're not necessarily burned out, but it does get kind of boring after a while, you know? So for some of our high flyers, it's that I've kind of reached the pinnacle of my craft at this company I'm working at, or in this area I'm working in, or in this industry within the manufacturing sector. Now I want to broaden out. So those true, because you and I talked about, we have lots of people that are making careers in this industry that look at them as jobs and they use the
Sure.
self-talk of jobs. Whereas in lots of other industries where they make lots less money, they call those careers, right? And so we have those skilled trade folks that are career oriented that do look at being the best machinist or maintenance technician or fabricator that they can be as really being something they take pride in and they invest in academically as well as, kind of time wise. And so if, hey, I can get on this company because they use materials I haven't used before, or they apply a process I haven't used, or they use a tool I haven't used. With some of our technicians, that's how they choose every project is just based on that. What can I add to my toolbox with this one that I get to take with me to the next one?
And then someone down the road benefits from that
Yes, absolutely. Every time, every
every time.
time.
Every
And
time.
like, we're talking a real macro, right? Going from one area of America to another. But you can do this if you're listening to this podcast today and you're somebody that runs a maintenance department for a single site static manufacturing facility, you can do this there too, just
Right.
mix it up. If for that tech that's always doing X task and this tech that's always doing Y task, go in there and say, hey guys, for the next month, let's swap this up and get some cross training and freshen this up for you and get you into different areas of the facility. Have you meeting different other coworkers, right? Because we talk about tribal knowledge all the time in manufacturing, but how often are you hearing people talk about tribe? Not nearly as much, right? And you need to build up that tribal community within your company before there's ever any chance of transferring that tribal knowledge between members of that tribe,
Sure.
and so again, it sounds new age, but community and humanity, the more that you can keep that in how you're doing the day-to-day task oriented things of your business, it doesn't cost any money. It barely costs time. It just costs a little consideration, and the return on that investment is monumental.
It is. People get caught up though in their own BS. They get caught up in, if I give too much, someone might take something, or if I do this, that person might become successful, then they might be better than me. Or
Yes.
if I do this, then someone might hear that this person's doing really well and I might not look as good. It's all dumb stuff. And, you know, I, I always said when it came to, I've led many, many maintenance people, and my goal was always to make people better than me. Because if you're better
Yes.
than me, I can go do something else,
Yes.
right? And if that person's better than the next guy, they can go do something else, right? So it's like this constant cycle of building the best people you can be, even if they're better than you, even if they
Yes.
take your job at some point down the road. But ideally, the job is taken when you're moving to a bigger, better job because you've done such a good job bridging all the gaps, building relationships, creating a department that is symbiotic with the rest of the organization and with themselves, right? So people think that like when you build people up that you're going to be looked down upon and they're going to be better. That's not the case
Mhm.
at all. True
Yes.
leadership, true people who understand leadership and recognize leaders know the entire job is to facilitate success in other people. And
Yes.
when that is done, those people will be rewarded just as the people were rewarded that got built up.
That I mean, when you and I first met, Brian, I told you our mission statement here is literally one sentence: make a difference every day. And we try and do that obviously for our technicians with how we treat them and what we pay them. For our internal corporate employees for the same reasons, and in the community and culture that we create for them to do that work. For our clients to achieve their goals, and for what they get intrinsically out of partnering with us, and for the communities that are affected by all of us involved in that, which are thousands of communities around America. And we're in the middle of a presidential election cycle right now. Some of that stuff's top of mind, and so for those of you that are of a certain vintage like myself and you may remember the Reagan trickle down economics phrase, right? I like to apply that trickle down to things outside of the economics, to the tribal knowledge, to the community building, to everything else. But like what I'd encourage everyone listening to this today, whether you're a leader or whether you are an entry level, just getting started employee, let go of fear, because that's what's causing all of this. And you coming out of a maintenance background in institutions that tend to skew unionized, like we've seen this I'm 40 years old and I'm grown up and been, kind of um, baked in this mindset, and I've been trying to come up with the words and the actions to change it for most of those 40 years, and that is that whole proprietariness, that defensiveness to everything, whether it's knowledge or tasks or opportunities, because of exactly what you were talking about there, where I'm afraid to teach this person how to use this fluoroscope for inspections or something like that, because I'm the expert on that here. And if they can do it and they're new and they're making less than me, they can replace me. And what I would challenge you all, whatever way that thought applies to your day in and day out, that because I'm afraid they can replace me, or because I'm afraid it's going to cost too much, or it's because of whatever comes after fear, somewhere on the other side of fear is where growth and opportunity is
Everything you
for all
want.
of us, right? It's whether it's a little thing like learning how to swim, like that's scary before you learn, but until you jump in the water, there's no opportunity to do it. And that's the same thing for that experienced maintenance technician who's afraid to teach that new skill to the junior one because they're afraid. But what I would throw out for consideration is on the other side of that action you're afraid of is one of two things. Either what you're afraid of does happen, and in that case, you're existing in an environment where exactly what you're afraid of can and will happen. So isn't it to your benefit to know that sooner rather than later and be able
That's
to
right.
make different choices going forward?
Right.
Or it's not going to happen. And then something else happens that's normally good. You have another person that can take on these tasks. So, like you said, you can go to something different or something you've been wanting to take on, or you're just able to do more because now there's two of you, and neither of those things are bad things. So, you need to have a little bit of trust and a little bit of courage that good or bad, whatever comes on the other side of this thing you're afraid of, it's going to be the right thing for you at this time. And it's going to give you a thing that you can take knowledge based actions off of rather than fear based speculative actions, and that when you start doing that, when you leave fear behind, like there's just so much good that's on the other side of that for you as an individual and for kind of those larger tribes you're a part of at work and at home.
No doubt. Great, great. That was very well said. And think of it as we, not I, right?
Yep.
Um, Josh, it's been an absolute pleasure. This went by really fast.
Did.
Which is awesome, right? But
Yeah.
I wanted to give you the last word. If anybody listening wants to get a hold of you, wants to learn more about Flex Trades, don't put your cell phone number on here. But
Yeah.
how can they get a hold of you?
So we're on every social media platform you can think of. What's good for manufacturing and the skilled trades is good for us. So especially on like some of our video heavy things like YouTube, we put out a ton of content, and on our blogs page on our website that should be educational, informative, or entertaining to anybody in and around the skilled trades, whether you work with us or not. And if you're somebody interested in working with us as a technician, or if you're in the manufacturing world and you're sitting here going, I could use help, we're very happy to kick the tires on it. It doesn't cost any money at all to go through our discovery phase, have a tech call with some consultancy. Easiest way to do that is go to flextrades.com. Our website's really great, super intuitive. Check out our blogs, drop down. You can go to client solutions or just click the contact us button, and we'll get the right person in contact with you. And anybody listening to this right now, wherever you're at on your career path, keep going. We need you here. Like there is the skilled labor pool today is not as full as it should be. And we're creating two jobs for everyone we're filling in this industry. So technology's not making your jobs go away. The skills gap's not making it go away. It's just getting bigger. We have a great home for all of you, whether you work with your hands, whether you work with your mind. Manufacturing needs you, the skilled trades need you, and we're happy to have you. So watching a podcast like this, Bryan, is one of your first steps on taking this from being an interest to being a career. Keep taking those steps because you want to make a greater America. It starts by making better things, and manufacturing in America is what does that.
That's right. I 100% agree. I can't thank you enough. It was a pleasure meeting you in person. I'm glad we got the film. That's going to be dropping
Yep.
relatively soon, which is
With
awesome.
relatively soon, within the next month or so. We wear many hats here on the marketing
Oh,
team at
no way.
FlexTrade. So we put out at least one video a week and try and keep pumping them out, and can't wait to share our initial conversation. Can't wait for this to drop, and honestly can't wait for a topic to come up for you and I to need to chat again about something.
It will happen. Josh, thank you so much. On behalf of Upkeep, thank you. It's been a pleasure. Keep fighting the good fight.
Appreciate you and everything you and Upkeep are doing too, Bryan. Thank you. And thank all of you that are watching this. Thank you. We need you. Keep going. You keep fighting the good fight too.
Agree. Thank you. And Josh, we will see you on the next one.
Likewise. Bye.
Yeah.